Today's episode is brought to you by Loving Me Teas.
Are you ready to start 2019 by devoting more love to yourself? Loving Me Teas will help you get started. Loving Me Teas is a brand that empowers females to nourish the foundation of their love, embrace their inner and outer beauty, and boldly love who they have been created to be. Loving Me Teas believes that self-love begins with the loving relationship you create with yourself. Loving Me Teas offers statement teas celebrating self-love and body love. And with each order, you receive affirmation cards and a journal, tools to aid in your self-love journey. Whether you are starting or renewing your #love journey, we want every female to start off 2019 choosing to love themselves. Use offer code TRILLMBA to get 10% off your order. So go on over to lovingmeteas.com and pick a tea for yourself, and let's get started on this love journey. Now let's start the show. Welcome to the Trill MBA show. I'm your host, the Trillest MBA you will ever know, and I'm here to help you survive and thrive in corporate America by giving you the truth and being as real as only I can be. Happy New Year, everyone! Yay! It's 2019. Wow. And welcome to season 3. Season 3, y'all. It's been 3 years. 3 years of the Trill MBA show. I'm so excited. I hope everyone is gearing up for a successful, abundant, goal-achieving year. I know I am. And since it's the first episode of the new year and new season, I want to ground us in a foundational message. And I have to be honest, this is a message that I know that I need for myself. So you are not alone. I'm so excited. So today we are talking about self-love, what it is, and why it will set you up for success. Joining me today is one of my very, very dear friends, Eleana Johnson. So let me tell you about this Black girl magic friend of mine, Eleana. Eleana is a Minnesota native. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from Alabama State University. Eleana also earned an MBA with a concentration in marketing and entrepreneurship from the University of St. Thomas. She is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Her professional work experience includes 6 years as an auditor for PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, 4 years as a digital brand marketer at General Mills, where she worked on the Pillsbury and Yoplait brands. Currently, Eleana is the Senior Brand Advertising Manager at NRG in Houston, Texas, and the founder and owner of Loving Me Teas. Loving Me Teas, launched in 2018, is a t-shirt brand empowering women to embrace self-love and body love. Eleana, welcome to the show.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. So not only is this the first show of the new year, but when this show airs, it will be my birthday. It will be my birthday.
Happy birthday.
So clearly we're recording this before the actual day. But I'm excited to have you on the show because you are just amazing. So not only do you beast it out in these corporate streets, but you also about this side hustle life. So Eleana, I want to start off by asking you, outside of all this greatness, what is it that you want the audience to know about Eleana Johnson?
I would love for the audience to know that I am a complete, total behind-the-scenes person. I don't like to be in the limelight. So being on this podcast is definitely a stretch opportunity for me. Totally excited to be able to share about self-love and the importance of it, but I'm definitely one who is very reserved and loves to be in the background, and definitely have a big heart to help anyone and everyone out, but really just want to focus on encouraging women to just love themselves and to choosing to love themselves.
And I totally get that. But Elena, you know this line is gonna blow up. So I'm just telling you. But you know what I love about you is that you are black girl magic, like all of us. Like you are just living your life, got these degrees, trying to make these figures, and life happens. So what was it in your journey that inspired you to create Loving Me Teas?
So my journey has been, I'm sure like many of you all, just nothing is linear. It is very curvy and topsy-turvy. So I would say there were probably three key things that really settled me to start my love journey. And it didn't happen when I was in high school or when I was in my 20s. It was what happened to me in high school and in my 20s is really what triggered me to go on this love journey. And so a lot of us, when we're growing up as kids, our parents are pouring into us, our communities pouring into us, our mentors are pouring into us. But at a young age, things about ourselves and believing in our worth and our value doesn't necessarily stick at that time, or we're not ready to receive it. So for me, I had all of that, but I wasn't at that point of really understanding what true self-love meant until I got to those three different phases in my life where I recognized I need to pause and I need to figure out Elena. And I would say the first step for me was relationships. So relationships with guys, relationships with partners, and knowing that I tolerated a lot of foolishness just for the sake of saying I had a boyfriend or just for the sake of having a partner. And I was losing myself in those relationships. And I realized I needed to regain my self-worth and really love myself. Some may say, like, wow, that's super frivolous. Like, how could you allow someone to walk over you or do things that hurt you as a person? But it does happen. And it happened to me. And I realized that that was not okay because I didn't feel good about it. And so that was one of the trigger points that led me to that. The second one was corporate America. Brutal organizations I worked in. I mean, PwC and General Mills, you have to have very tough skin to be able to survive and progress in those organizations. My experience at General Mills, though it was great, I had an extremely tough boss who, one day would be my friend in my face, want to know all things melanin. And then as soon as I got my performance review, I literally ranked at the bottom of my entire class. And all the examples that were included in my performance review were very shallow. And I knew I was a hard worker. I knew I gave my all. I knew I was kicking butt. And he did not acknowledge any of that. I broke down and I cried in that performance review in front of him, which is the worst thing you could ever, well, to me, you could ever do was cry in front of your boss.
Yep.
But yeah, so I realized walking away, I was like, I started believing what he wrote. But I knew that everything that I produced, all the output, all of my teammates were just telling me I was a rock star. So I knew something wasn't right. And that also propelled me to pause and to think. And I would say what really triggered me to actually put all of those things into action, to pause, to say I needed to do a self-love journey, is when I moved to Houston. It'll be 5 years in February. I took the leap of faith. I moved to Houston, and God got me extremely quiet and still. And that's when God started revealing all these different situations that had happened to me throughout my life and telling me, you are not validated by another human being. You are not validated by your job. You're validated through the love of Jesus Christ, and I need to show you what that means. And so God just showed me honestly, over a 3-year period. It was pretty intense in the beginning, of course, but then over time I started to develop a process in which I would always exercise self-love over the 3-year period. But that first year for me in Houston was pretty brutal, where God got me very quiet and was just revealing a lot of my journey to me from my past as to, what were the triggers for me to react the way I did? What were the triggers for me to not recognize my own self-worth and my own self-love? And I had to come to terms with that. I had to get very honest about the whys, the what, the whens, the hows, and really just accept, hey, I did that, but that's not who I want to be, and that's not where I need to be. And in order for me to really love myself, I have to do away with all of the negativity. I have to eliminate all of the dishonesty. I have to eliminate everything that's not the truth and write down, what do I believe about myself? And then also, what do I aspire to become? And I have to walk that out. I have to live that out, and I have to speak that out. And so all of that just really propelled me on a self-love journey to where now it's a practice. It's a daily practice. Just like each and every day we have to eat, drink to survive, in my mind, I have to talk about self-love to myself in order to survive. It's food for the soul for me personally. So that has been, in a nutshell, just my story as to how I started that self-journey process.
So I have 11 million questions. You already know this.
I said a lot, sorry.
No. I think it was very impactful what you just said because, and I want to unpack a little bit. Can you describe the feeling you had when you got to that point where you were open to listening what God was telling you about getting still? Like, do you remember where you were? Do you remember how you felt? Because I think a lot of people are walking around and they are in denial, and I'm raising my hand right now because I am one of them, around getting still and really understanding deep inside what is happening, where that voice in your head is very negative and beating your own self up. We're the most critical of our own selves.
Mm-hmm.
And anything anybody says outside of us, it just has a way of kind of validating what we've already told ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so when do you stop the noise? What is that thing, or is there one particular thing, or even just from your experience, like, can you pinpoint that final straw that like woke you up and was like, wait a minute?
Absolutely. So, when there's many songs and the word says, God will wake you up in the midnight hour.
Mm-hmm.
So when I moved to Houston, I didn't have a job. I quit General Mills, didn't have a job, stepped out on faith. And so I had time to literally just chill. And I'll never forget, I moved in February, it was around March. God started waking me up literally at 2 o'clock every morning. And I was like, okay, why am I wide awake at 2 o'clock? And I always keep a journal or notepad by my bed because God will wake me up and I have to write it down. Whatever he's telling me, I need to write it down. And so over about 3 weeks, God would wake me up. I would be wide awake, and he would say nothing. And I would just sit there and just lay there. And I'm like, okay, God, do you want to say something? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I would read the Bible, I would pray, and I would still be silent. Finally, April comes around, and God started talking to me. And he was like, I just needed you to be obedient first to make sure that I could have your quiet, undivided attention. And this is the only time I could get it, was 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'd be up from 2 to 3, sometimes 2 to 4 with nothing. And, God was saying, I need you to now reverse that timing, and I need you to sit still and be quiet during the day when you're awake and when you're alert, because I have to talk to you. Like, it was just that clear. And so at first, I was pretty apprehensive to it because I have music playing in my house 24/7. I have to go to bed with white noise, so I don't sit in silence often. And so I finally was like, okay, I'll do it. It's very uncomfortable, but I'll do it. And so when I started doing that, God would reveal little things to me here and there and still wake me up in the middle of the night. But it was over a 6-7 month period where God was just talking to me, showing me things, revealing things to me. But it would only happen when I would get quiet and still. So there would be some days, because I was still trying to explore and get to know Houston, where I wouldn't do that. But God would tap me and wake me up in the middle of the night and say, we still have to talk. I'm not done yet. So a lot of it came during that time. So I know it's different for every single person, but what I will say the takeaway is it's getting still and it's being quiet. And it's not for short periods of time. It's not like, okay, let me sit for 5 minutes and just wait until I hear something. Like, it has to become a practice where you're sitting and you're comfortable with sitting in silence and not always waiting to hear something or reveal something, but being comfortable with silence so then you can listen to your own thoughts. You can actually think clearly, and things do begin to be revealed to you through that. But it has to become a practice.
How did you know that's what you needed to do? And not at 2 a.m, but like, was it just something in your spirit that was just like, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm just gonna ask God to tell me what to do or what it is, or I'm just gonna wait for God to talk to me?
Well, the funny thing, at first, I didn't know what it was. I didn't recognize the trigger was God waking me up. That was not the first answer. It was, okay, I'm waking up, maybe I have to use the restroom. Or I'm waking up, maybe it's a natural wake up and I slept long enough. And I think it might have been the third day where I finally said, God, are you trying to talk to me? Because then it became 2 o'clock on the dot consistently, and now I'm at day 3. Something else is happening. So that's when I got to that point. I said, God, are you trying to talk to me? I didn't hear anything, but the fact that after that I continued to wake up at 2 o'clock, I knew it was God. And so I was just like, I'm just going to be obedient, continue to wake up at 2 o'clock. I'm going to sit and wait and until something happens, because something's got to happen. And I would also ask God, are you wanting me to do this? Am I waiting for you to say something to me? It's hard to explain, but that's what happened.
I think that's amazing. And I think that there are no accidents. And you sharing this story right here, right now, is definitely going to help a lot of people listening.
Well, one thing I'll add to that is, you're asking me how did I know? The other piece of that is when I moved to Houston, it was a faith walk. So I knew that every step that I was taking was because God told me to take it. And I would have to trust him along the way. And so I was hungry for anything he wanted to say to me because I needed to know, what does the rest of this journey look like in my life? I'm leaving. I don't know. I don't have anything. I'm just trusting God because God told me to move to Houston. That's a whole other story. And so I knew that I had to just wait on God for whatever it was. I just didn't know what he wanted to talk to me about. So I would say that's the part where I knew, okay, this is God. But I didn't know he wanted to talk to me about my self-love journey. I thought he wanted to talk to me about some other things I won't talk about. But a part of that is when I moved down there, I was on a faith journey.
I think that's amazing. And I think part of any journey is a lot of faith and a lot of trying to hear and see and understand. It's funny. I think a good metaphor for life in general is walking around in the dark. Because although you may be able to see a little bit of something, right? Because there's like ambient light or what have you, you can't see everything, and you have to trust that you're not going to trip and fall and that you're going to make it from one room to the other in the dark sometimes. Like when you're going to the bathroom and if you cut that light on, just you're not going to be able to go back to sleep.
Right.
And so you're like, okay, God, just don't let me trip over the crap I done left in the middle of the floor in my bedroom and
fall my toe on some furniture
or bust my head to the white meat because I fell. Like,
right.
We've all been there. But I think there's many times where we'll come to certain intersections and points in our lives where we just have to trust. We have to trust God. We have to trust the universe. Whatever you believe in, you have to trust that thing, that intuition, that voice, that spirit that's talking to you so that you can get to where you need to go. And I think that's really important. And I'm glad that you shared that, because that sets us up for after you got this message, then what was that self-love journey look like? Because I know it's important. A quote that I had saw on the internet a couple weeks ago when I was doing research for this show, and I never realized who this quote came from. I had heard it before. The quote is, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare." And that is a Audre Lorde quote. And I was like, oh, I know, right? Because
I love that.
when you live in faith, to me, that is self-preservation. That is, I'm putting everything in your hands, to the Creator. And I know that I cannot depend on the things that I see. I know I have to depend on this thing that's bigger than me, that brought me to this earth and has me here to fulfill this purpose that I'm in this body for. And so, with that, you have to focus on caring for yourself so that you can complete your mission, right? And so, in that, what did this journey start looking like when you first got to Houston, starting this self-love journey? Like,
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always been a nurturer. I've always been the type of person to constantly give to other people and encourage and pour into other people, knowing that that's one of my spiritual gifts, but not knowing that I was depleting
say
myself
that.
because I was overdoing it. So when I look at, for example, some of the relationships that I had that helped propel me into this self love journey is getting validation from someone else for me meant I have to go above and beyond to pour into you at whatever cost that left me at or whatever depletion that left me at. If you needed something, I got you, but I got you 110% versus the 20% you give me. I never wanted to let somebody else down. So that was in family
Mm-hmm.
and friendships and relationships. And one of the first things God was showing to me was, you are loved because I love you, and my love is free. My love does not come with any string. That took a while for me to understand. Of course, I had to go through like some devotions, and I've always been a Christian, and maybe others aren't, but I believe that love is free.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but we have to understand what that truly means, and we have to be willing and ready to receive it. I wasn't at the place where I really was living in that and basking in that. And so that was a few weeks, honestly, of God just being like, I love you and I'm going to show you how. And when I say show you how, it literally was God was placing people into my life, strangers around Houston that I didn't know, who I could be a Trader Joe's, somebody handing something to me, or someone giving me some advice about something randomly, or someone telling me, oh my gosh, I love your outfit, or something of that nature. So God was doing little things to just reinforce what his love looks like and what his love is. And, you know, I would go on walks every day and looking at his creation every day, and like a bird coming up to me, chirping in my ear. I'm like, this is really weird. But there were just little things that God would do to show me. And so it started with the love, but then also nurturing and understanding that, yes, your spiritual gift can be encouragement and giving, but it doesn't have to be to the point of self-depletion. It's okay to be selfish, and actually I condone selfishness, because if you're not whole, you cannot pour out and give to anyone else because you're completely empty then. So it was redefining what giving meant for me, redefining what encouragement meant for me, but also redefining what selfishness meant. So for me, it was like, selfishness does not mean you're doing it to be spiteful, but selfishness means I have to protect my mind, body, and soul. You know, part of the setting boundaries things that you mentioned, like, you have to be able to do that, and that's a part of that process. Another thing that God was having me do was start this gratitude journal. And so every morning I will write 3 things down about myself that I love. And it could be repeated, but I started just writing little things down, even when I did not believe them. It was like, oh, Elena, you know, you're beautiful. Well, I may not believe that, but I need to write it down because that needs to become my truth. And so every day I will be committed to writing 3 things down about my character, about my body, about my appearance, about, you know, my skill set, my behaviors, no matter what it was. And I filled up an entire journal, and I would go back and I would read through it. And I realized that from the time I started that to the time that I finished it, in the beginning, a lot of the stuff I wrote I didn't even believe about myself. By the time I got to the end, I had so much confidence. I was like, yep, I know I am. Yes, I know I'm that. And so, coming out of writing each of those 3 things down about myself, I would also start writing post-it notes and quotes on post-it notes that I would either find online or things that I would know about myself, and I'd post them on my mirror in my bathroom. And I would read those out loud every morning. Anytime I was in the bathroom, I would at least say 1 or 2 of them. And I would look at myself in the mirror and I would say it, and I would say, Elena, you are confident. Elena, you are worthy. When I started doing that, I just physically started to change. Because I recognize, like, I'm speaking things into existence. I'm speaking truth into existence. My whole demeanor started changing. And I really started believing, like, this is who I am. I am worthy. I am capable. I am lovable. I'm a phenomenal woman. And I will walk in that and I will believe that. In the beginning, when I would say it sometimes, I would be like, oh, okay, you're beautiful, whatever, and walk away and not look at myself in the mirror because I didn't believe it. And then after a while, it just became standing in the mirror, looking at myself, being very intentional about that. And whatever it was I would say, I would just stare at myself and just say it, like, you are, Elena, you are, you are. And it became my truth over time. So that's become like one of my biggest practices is just affirmations and speaking things into existence, because that becomes what you hear. That becomes who you are. That becomes everything about you. So it's like all these different little tools or different things that God was showing me that I needed to do on this journey for me to love myself started just coming to fruition and becoming my
Right.
practice.
Oh man, that just blessed my soul. Thank you. This concludes part 1 of a 2-part episode. Tune in next week to learn how your love journey can affect you in the workplace. Until next week, y'all, keep it trill. This episode was brought to you by Loving Me Teas. Hey guys, Felicia here. Look, it's the year of our Lord, 2019. And this year, we should all start it out by just loving ourselves. And who better to help us do that than Loving Me Teas? Loving Me Teas is a brand that empowers females to nourish the foundation of their love, embrace their inner and outer beauty, and boldly love who they have been created to be. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, this love journey thing has been just that, a journey. But I appreciate my brilliant badass t-shirt that I like to wear in the airport. At Loving Me Teas, we want you to fall in love with the most beautiful soul on the planet, you. Take a moment to soak it all in and cherish the journey to truly loving you. LovingMeTeas.com is having a special offer for Trill MBA listeners. So go to LovingMeTeas.com and get 10% off your order when you use the offer code TrillMBA. Get to loving yourselves, ladies. Get your shirts, get your journal, get your affirmation cards, and start talking yourself up. Because who better to love than yourself? The Trill MBA Show is a Fair World Corp. LLC production, executive produced by Felicia and Rose Enuha. Music is Kick Push by Ryan Little. Keep it trill every day, y'all.